and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding, and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. Now, my guest today I had the pleasure of meeting at a Linen Brown soiree. We instantly clicked. This guest loves helping business owners regain their passion for business whilst having a goal to turn their business into a valuable, sellable asset. He is the founder of Business Ready for Sale. And today, John Denton is here to share all his top secrets on getting your business ready for sale. John, welcome.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for making time for us, John. I want to back us all the way back up, John. I'd love to know, what did 10-year-old John want to be growing up?
What did I want to be growing up? I wanted to be a pilot in the RAF.
Ah,
So I just loved watching jets flying around in the sky. So yes, but it never happened. It never happened. I came close, but didn't quite get there.
did you go and do any sort of training as part of it, or?
Yeah, look, I was in the Air Training Corps as a teenager. And then it was all on track. So I did some flying with the Air Training Corps, applied for the pilot entry to the RAF, and got invited down to Biggin Hill in England
Mm.
to do, it was either 1 week or 2 weeks of selection and all that sort of thing. Um, Maybe you're not going to like this, Tracy,
Oh,
but I, I had a girlfriend at the time, and
oh,
she
I
talked me out
see.
of it.
The things we do for love, hey?
Absolutely, yes. So, but anyway, look, life's been really good since it. Maybe it's all for the best.
Yes. And did that girlfriend become your wife at all, John, or no?
No, we did end up getting engaged, but then it didn't go any further than that. So, and the poor lass has since passed away, but
Oh,
no, it didn't go anywhere.
I'm sorry to hear.
That's all right. That's life's what happens.
And John, on that note, what was the next, I guess, the next step of your journey after that had happened?
Yes, I went into a steelworks. So I lived in a very industrial little town in the East Midlands of England, and the only real serious industry for the male population was the iron and steel and tube works. So I did an apprenticeship as an electronic engineer, and it was fascinating. If I can just tell you about, and I tell this story sometimes when I'm talking about vision.
Oh, please
Um,
do.
it wasn't the sort of place that I wanted to stay. The town was okay, but the steelworks was very smoky, very noisy, um, and as an apprentice, probably halfway through my apprenticeship, one day a bunch of us apprentices, we didn't have too much to do, and it was one of those days where the sun shone in Corby. All right, so my dad used to say, if you're far enough away from Corby, you can't see the smoke, then you must be on holiday. But this particular day, the sun was breaking through the clouds and through the smoke, and a bunch of us went up and sat on the roof of the steelmaking plant, so about the size of an aircraft hangar. And we were catching some sun, and the guys started talking about, yeah, well, when I finish my apprenticeship, I want to be a foreman in the tube works. Oh no, I want to be a foreman in the splitting line, the blast furnaces. Well, they were all going on, and then they came to me, and I was just laid back on a sloping part of the roof with my eyes closed, enjoying the sun. And they said, John, what about you? What do you want to be? I said, look, I've got no idea where it is, but I can see beaches, I can see palm trees, I can see girls in bikinis, and it's a long way from here.
Yeah.
And, and now I live in Alkimos Beach. We've got
Yeah. Oh my
beaches,
goodness.
palm trees, and girls in bikinis occasionally.
Right.
So, but and those guys the other guys that were there are still back there in the same town. And look, they're happy, and they've, got grandkids, and they're all comfortable and everything else. But I just think it's really interesting when you visualize something
Mm.
and you want it enough, it'll come about.
And I love that you've touched on that, John. Did you consciously have that vision? Is it something you've always held sort of at the forefront of your mind through your life?
I read a book. My dad didn't go very far, but I used to go to the library every fortnight and get him two books, one on cricket and one
Mm,
on travel. They were his passions, but he never got to travel very much outside of Corby because of circumstances and things. And one day I was in the library and I saw this book called The Magic of Thinking Big. I don't
mm,
know if it's Ogmandino or somebody, but and I picked the book up and I thought, oh, I'll have a read of this. And I read that book, and I think it was that started me thinking about, well, I don't want to stay in the town. I don't want to stay in the steelworks. I want to travel the world that my dad hasn't been able to travel.
mm.
And boy, I've done that. I've lived in 4 different countries now and
Wow.
traveled a lot. So again, it's just having that vision and the desire and the passion to do something. Um, a lot of my friends still back there. We always catch up when I go back to England. Um, and they've got what they want, and I've got what I want. So it's, yeah, just you got to have a vision and know where you're going.
Definitely. And isn't it incredible? Just one book, one person, like your ex girlfriend or, podcast or something can just completely change the entire trajectory of your life. And for me, that was Tony Robbins. I think, gosh, I don't even know when I discovered him. Maybe early like 2000s. I just sort of finished school and started at uni and just was so inspired by him and just his energy that he has. And that was kind of the start of my mind being completely blown open to this whole nother world, which is pretty incredible.
Yes, fantastic guy. I did a couple of his workshops some years ago as well. Yeah.
Oh, have you? I haven't. That's still on my list. But did you do the firewalking?
No, I haven't. No, I didn't do
Oh,
that one. I don't know whether I would actually, but anyway.
I'm a bit the same. It's a bit like skydiving. I've done it once. I don't know if I'll do it again. So
Which one, sorry?
I did skydiving a few years ago. So
Uh,
I treated my
uh,
sister for her. I think it was her 18th or 21st. But I think it's the kind of thing you just do once and never ever again.
yeah, tick it off your bucket list and leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And John, which countries have you lived in on your journey?
Okay, well, on my journey to find these beaches and palm trees,
And girls in
I
bikinis.
I wasn't going to add that bit, but yeah, um, I got the opportunity to go and work in Holland. Um, I was in the IT game, but then I'd left the steelworks. Best bit of advice I ever got. I was about a week or two from finishing my apprenticeship in the steelworks, and I asked the guy that I was seconded to, I don't want to stay in the steelworks. What should I do? And he
Mm,
said, get into computers. Computers are the future. Um, I wrote off to a couple of computer companies and got taken on as a service engineer. That was in England, but then an opportunity came up to go and live in Holland and work for the company in Holland on
mm.
contract to the European Space Agency. And that was a fantastic experience. And
Yeah, that would have been.
yeah, spent some time in Cape Canaveral on a launch and worked all around Europe and had a fantastic time. Don't know why I left really. I And then after Holland, I went and lived in Bavaria in the south of Germany. Again, working for the same company on contract to
Mm,
one of our resellers down there. So, I know when I think back to it, it's incredible. I wasn't afraid of anything or trying anything, and
too.
so here I was in the south of Germany on call at night um, and learning German at the same time. You know, picked up some Dutch when I lived in the Netherlands, but because most people there speak some English, you get lazy. You don't.
Mm.
But then being on call and getting called at 3 o'clock in the morning in German
Oh,
because somebody's got a problem, you learn very quickly, Tracy.
yeah, you would.
But yeah, when I think back to those days, it was a no fear thing. You just, yep, I'll go and do that, and we'll work it out. So yeah, I think it's just when I look back on it, would I do that now? Don't know. Probably would actually.
And John, I'm so inspired. How did you cultivate that, like, no fear, I guess, mindset? Because so many of us are held back by our fears and we often talk ourselves out of doing something, whereas it sounds like you kind of just went with it.
Yes, I'm not sure whether it's in the DNA or whether you learn it. I think
Hmm.
reading that book and other books, I've been pretty strong on the personal development sort of side of things, and yeah, it's just, well, what's the worst that could happen? If you think of it like that, it's even emigrating to Australia.
Yes.
I knew nobody in Australia, had never been. Um, didn't really know what I was coming to, apart from the beaches and palm trees and girls in bikinis. It's a recurring theme here, isn't it?
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it was, well, if I go, what's the worst that could happen? I can always
Hmm.
come back, you know, I can always undo it. And it's the same in business when you're thinking sometimes, I sometimes get clients who are so slow to make a decision and do something.
Hmm.
And I get quite frustrated with them sometimes. It's like, well, what's the worst that could happen?
Yes.
And could you undo it and go back or have a plan B? And 99 times out of 100, yes, you can. Well, just
Hmm.
do it. It's better to make a decision quickly than make a poor decision and take forever. It's just I guess we're all different, aren't we? We think differently on these things, but just make a decision, do it, see what happens. And yeah, what's the worst? Is it a life-threatening thing? Generally
Yes.
not.
No. Mm-mm. And I experience the same with my clients. They have, so much greatness within them. They've got a great business, but they tend to kind of stall on one decision. And I'm like, just choose the colors. Like, we can help guide you, and nothing's really ever set in stone. Whilst the brand foundation is important, we can always go back and review. And as your business grows, and I think so many of us, myself included, I'm a work in progress. We get fixated on the details of, what. We almost play the clock forward in some ways, and we kind of paralyze ourselves to making any decision thereof. John, what would your advice be to someone who is stalling, who is kind of, in that perfectionistic mode where they're kind of weighing up every single aspect of that decision?
Yes, it's asking yourself, what is the worst that could
Hmm.
possibly happen, and can you live with that? And if you can, well, give it a go.
Yeah.
It's difficult, Tracy. It's the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset
Hmm.
thing. Carol Dweck's book on that is fantastic. There's some videos. People get, and again, this when I'm coaching, it gets
Yeah.
frustrating sometimes when you've got somebody who has a fixed mindset. Generally, they don't stay a client for too long
Mm.
because it's we go through this what I call a clay pigeon shooting exercise where I throw up the ideas and they shoot them down.
Yes.
You know,
It's a good way of putting it.
no, I tried that. That didn't work. No, that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, and
it,
Don, for
it,
our listeners, do you mind to briefly just summarize up what a fixed mindset is and what a growth mindset is for those that aren't sure?
mm, a fixed mindset is pretty much what it says. A growth mindset is a learning mindset
Mm.
that where it's like, well, can I do something? Well, not yet. And this is the secret is putting not yet on it,
Mm.
Um, have I got X, Y, Z? Well, no, not yet. Whereas the fixed mindset is no, that won't work. No, I can't do that. So there's no room to try anything
Mm.
different. Whereas the growth mindset says, well, okay, maybe I can't do that now, but I can't do it yet, but I will.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to explain.
No, that makes sense what you've shared. And do you find some people are able to change their mindset, or do you find those that have a fixed mindset will kind of, their business won't survive, or they kind of just naturally tap out in your experience?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Do people change? Um, Very few, I would suggest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it takes something really um, major to get people to shift their thinking.
Mm.
You know, maybe a disaster of some kind. I did.
Yes.
You were talking about Tony Robbins. I did more stuff with Robert Kiyosaki than Tony
Oh, yes.
Robbins,
Mm.
and he was very much about perturbation. So he would put us through some quite um, stressful, is not the right word, but pressure situations.
Yes.
And his view is that things don't change until pressure is applied. You know,
Mm. I can relate to
coal
that.
will carbon will become a diamond if it's put under enough pressure.
Yes.
And he talks about people changing, and it takes a lot of pressure sometimes to get us to change. If
Mm.
someone if someone goes into the military and they go through the military process, the military change people,
Mm. Definitely.
you know, but it's pressure change. Um, if we're left without that pressure, I believe most of us tend to just default to our default settings.
Mm. Very true.
It's we don't very often stay changed too much. Doing that stuff with Robert Kiyosaki did change me. Yeah,
Yes.
changed a lot of people.
It's interesting that you shared that because we just did a business retreat with Paul Klassen in Busselton. It's at a lovely resort, and it was like chock a block the entire weekend. I think running was having a break, and at breakfast we were like, "Oh, we would have loved a couple of days, to enjoy the spa and the pool and everything." And then on the last day, he said a very similar thing. He said, um, he structured the course this way so that we can become more resilient because in business you don't always get to take those breaks or you don't get to have leisurely time where you can sit by the pool and chill. So it was just exactly what you just said as well. It really builds that resilience mindset.
Yes, yes. The Robert Kiyosaki thing, the last thing I did with him was 16 days in Hawaii.
Wow.
That was called Business School for Entrepreneurs. And I think a few years later, after I did it, I think Tony Robbins took it over actually.
Mm.
And I don't know whether he would get away with doing it now because some of the pressure and the things that we did, yeah, it was incredible, absolutely incredible. And it was a roller coaster. They took your emotions up and
Oh,
then
I can
they
imagine.
crashed you down, and then they took you up and then they crashed you down. And it was really, and again, it was all about, well, this is what happens in business.
Mm.
When he ran sessions, or one of his presenters ran a session in the hall, the logistics people would play music. That was the signal to get back in the hall.
Okay.
If you didn't get in before they closed the doors, it was a $25 US fine,
Oh,
and you
right.
had to pay in real cash.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, and his message was, if you're late in business, it costs you money.
Mm. That's so true.
And all the way through the 16 days, there were fines and all sorts of things. We would be working past midnight sometimes, and he would get everybody together in their either marketing teams or running teams, get the
Yes.
logistics people to count up. And if anybody was missing, he would fine the team. And now I'm talking hundreds of dollars. And
Wow.
the dynamic that creates is, well, if we're a team of 10 and there's 8 of us there, the
Mm.
team gets fined $1,000. Who pays the fine? Is it the
Yeah.
2 people who aren't there, or is it the team?
Mm.
And now all these sort of dynamics come into it, and
Come into play.
the
Interesting.
emotions, and yeah, incredible. Interestingly, and again, he was very strong on upfront communication.
Mm.
So at the start of the 16 days in Hawaii, he got up on stage and he said, look, I'm the government. I make the rules. I'll change the rules and I'll break the rules, but you
Yeah.
obey the rules. And if you don't, there will be fines. And then he said, and if you don't like that idea, leave now, we'll give you your money back.
What, did anyone leave?
No, And then it was, you're going to be in running teams and you're going to run, and I don't want anybody coming up to me and saying they got a sore ankle or the doctor's
Oh,
orders or anything. You are
yeah.
going to run. Now, if you don't want to do that, leave now, give you your money back.
Yeah.
I don't know whether anybody, I can't remember, but there are a few things like that. He said, and if you don't want to play by the rules, then
Mm,
leave now, we'll give you your money back.
mm.
And then as we got into it, the emotions started to flow
I can
and the
imagine.
fines started. You can imagine what happened.
Yes.
Interestingly, and what he didn't tell us until the last sort of day is the money that they collected in fines all went to charity.
Oh, fantastic. So that was it was for a good cause. Yeah.
Yeah, they split it between two charities and stuff. And yeah, so there was, but the learning, and it was all about, yeah, well, these things happen in business. The
Mm.
government will change the rules.
Yes, all the
Boy,
time.
exactly. Boy, do we know that now. Just
Yes.
look at the HR laws.
Yeah. Totally. I
So
think it's that was shared on the weekend was that, we're trying to achieve, I think that the top 1 to 5% of the world globally are willing to do. So it just shows our willingness to put ourselves through these things. And that's why, business treats, the courses that you went on, it's really important to have that as part of your business journey and building that mental resilience because it is another level.
it is. And I think it helps you make the decision of whether you want to be in business or not.
Yes.
It's
And do you
not for everyone, is it, Tracy?
Oof, no, John, it's not. I think when I first started my business to where I am now, would I do it again? Yes, but I think it's impacted every area of my life. Like you just sort of think, oh yeah, I'm going to have my graphic design branding business, and that's kind of evolved into a branding agency now. But just the person that you're required to be to actually reach those goals. And I heard a very interesting thing at a leadership conference I went to. They said it's one thing having goals and dreams, but then what people often forget to think about is what you have to actually do to maintain those goals and dreams. I thought, wow, I've never thought about that. You kind of tick it off and then you just kind of move on to the next one, not bearing in mind that you could potentially lose that goal or dream if you don't keep at it. So it requires a very different mindset and person. I'll say we're a very different kettle of fish.
Yes, and I think Stephen Covey said it's what you have to become in order to do things differently. You have to be different in
Yes.
order to do things differently. It starts with you.
100%. John, one thing you shared was, live life, and our business is a vehicle to achieve those goals. Do you mind to speak more to that, please?
Yes, a lot of people get into business and forget why they get into business. And I quite often, when I'm starting with a business owner, I say, "So why are you running your own business?" And I get all sorts of answers, um, like, "Oh, to make custom-made furniture and be world leading." And say, "No, no, no, that's what you do.
Mm.
What's the purpose of the business?" "Oh, the purpose of the business is to, be the best furniture manufacturer in the world." No, 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 no. That's what you do. What's the purpose of your business? Why did you get into business?
Mm.
Ah, well, so that I could be my own boss and then have the freedom to choose and
Yeah.
have more time to do things and everything else. And is that happening? No. And I, right, okay, well, something's gone wrong somewhere.
Yes.
Could you get a job? Could you get employment and have more of these things that you're talking about having? And
Mm.
it's like, yeah, well, maybe I could. It's because, yeah, people have got all those reasons for getting into business, but then they get so busy and caught up in the day to day of the business that they forget why they did it in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, and so when it comes to selling the business, which is what I'm all about, helping
Yes.
business owners get out of their business, it's because they basically made the business around them. They are
Mm.
the business. And so I often say the number one obstacle to a good business sale is the owner, because
Yeah.
they built it around them. Or they have a practice. I have a practice, I don't have a business. You
Mm.
know, you've got a business.
Yes.
A practice is built around an expert or a person, whereas a business is built around systems and a
I
team,
see.
and you can sell that. I can't sell me.
No, I haven't figured out how to split myself in 10 yet.
Yeah,
So,
but you've got people around you, and you're building a
yes.
business. Yeah.
So, John, what is the first step? So, say I wanted to sell my business. I'm over the branding, over the dynamics of being a business owner. What would be the first steps? Do you mind to walk us through? I know that's not just a single, like, there's not just one answer to that. What would be the first step I would take?
Well, the first step is to make the decision that you do want to exit,
Okay.
and then decide what the trigger is going to be for exiting.
Hmm.
And it's typically either, I've found over the years, and as a business broker for 12 years, people were exiting either because they wanted the money and they had things to pay off, or they wanted to retire or something like that. So it was a
Mm.
financial trigger, or it was a time trigger. Well, I've had enough of this now. I want to have a life, or I want to start another business, or invest in something else. So it's working out what the trigger is. And the most important thing I say to people is know what you're going to do after the business.
Yes.
You should never retire from something. You should retire to something.
Mm.
That's just my philosophy, is because, and I've seen this happen with business owners. I've seen business owners pull out of a sale because they suddenly realize that, well, without my business, what am I going to do?
What am I going to do with my life? Yeah.
Yeah, it's my baby, and I built it up, and after, I've had it for 20 years. It's what I do when I get up in the morning.
Yes.
What am I going to do without it? So, yeah, it's very important to have something to retire to, something to go to, not go from. And that becomes the motivator as well to
Mm.
do it. So know what your trigger is, know what your time frame is, and start planning early. 1 to 3 years is what I tell people
Okay.
before you actually want to exit. And my role is like a triage for people wanting to sell. Is, well, I just do what I used to do as a broker. Let me
Mm.
have a look at it. Let me have a look at all the upsides, downsides, and then you can start preparing and getting it ready, because you're in the business. You think the business is fantastic.
Yes,
Um,
as we do.
yeah. Well, it's my baby. I made this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to look at it through the eyes of a buyer. So that's where I come in and do. And say, well, if I was buying the business, what would be the good points? What would be the not so good points? And then
Mm.
you've got something to work on. So, yeah, so plan and prepare. The 7 Ps: prior preparation and planning
Yes.
prevents pretty poor performance.
I've heard a different version of that, but I like your version.
Yes.
And John, what
This
did you
is,
find of some of sorry, what were you going to say?
no, I was just going to say that's the public version.
Yes. It's the politically correct version.
Yeah.
And John, what do you find are some of the common like misconceptions people have about selling their business? Because like you said earlier, we think it's great, we think it's wonderful, it's our baby. What are some of the things that you see, most business owners they think they're ready to sell, but there's a few common pitfalls in their business and that actually makes them realize they're not quite ready.
Yes, the biggest one, as I say, is the owner themselves,
Yeah.
because I worked with a business owner who had started the business 20 or 22 years prior to me getting together with him, and
Mm.
so all the supplier relationships were with him, all the client relationships were with him, all the staff relationships were with him. He had the technical expertise.
Yes.
Um, so it was like, well, how can you sell when that's the situation? So it's looking at what you do in the business. So we worked on making sure he got good systems in place, and then I suggested that he get someone on as an operations manager and start weaning the clients and the suppliers onto the operations manager, and an
Mm.
operations manager with the technical know-how that the owner had. And so
Yes.
he did that. He got a great guy on board, and the view was, if he works out and he does a really, really good job, then make him the general manager.
Hmm.
And then you, the owner, can step back from the business, and then it becomes a much more saleable and a much more valuable asset to sell. And so after 2 years, 2.5 years, the owner was only going into the business a couple of half days a week.
That's great.
Um,
Sure.
yeah, it was fantastic. And he said, I only go in just to talk to the staff and see how they are, things
Mm.
like that. And that business sold, even though it was in the food industry,
Okay.
without going into too much detail. But so the guy that ended up buying it, he bought the company, which is unusual. It's normally the assets of the business. But he was confident enough that the business was clean and there was no hidden liabilities and everything was kosher. And the guy who bought it had no experience in that industry at all. So that's just testament to what you can do if you start
Yes.
planning early and get yourself out of the business. And that business went really, really well since the sale. Of course, the challenge then is convincing the buyer that the key person, there's always a key person in the business,
Yes.
that key person is going to stay under the
Mm.
new owner. So I helped to handle the sale as well. And so we put some provisions in there to incentivize the key person to stay for at least a couple of years. And that's
To
exactly
help
what happened.
with that transition.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Plus, the seller, the owner, was available on a consultancy basis to go in and help should the need arise. So
Mm.
it was a good sale. Happy seller, happy buyer, and that's what we're
Yes.
always after.
And John, as you mentioned earlier, our businesses are like our babies. There's such an emotional tie for a business owner to their business. Is this, I was reflecting on what you said earlier about planning, like what you want to do after your business. Do you recommend one does that because it's really hard to break that emotional tie that one has, to our businesses? Is that what you would suggest?
Yes, it's having something bigger and better and more motivating to go to.
Mm.
And so it's about having personal goals. And this comes back to, the business is a vehicle to give you the life that you want
Yes.
and deserve. Again, getting back to the purpose. Why am I in business? What's the purpose of business? Well, it's to give me the life that I want and deserve outside of the business.
Mm.
So a key thing that I get owners to think about is, what am I doing outside of the business? And I've got one great client at the moment who started thinking about that a couple of years ago, and now he's got a whole another hobby that he's set up that he's really passionate about and enjoying, and now
Great.
he's wanting to get to the point of retiring so that he can spend his time with his hobby.
Yeah.
It's having
Fantastic.
something better to go to.
Yes.
But like people leaving a job, they tend to leave a manager rather than a company, but
Yes.
they will typically only leave if they've got something better to go to. So why isn't it the same for business owners in the business? So getting business owners to get their head out of the business and start thinking about their personal life and their personal goals.
Mm.
And my business is a vehicle to get me my personal life, my personal goals. I'm sure you've been down that path, or you've got those thoughts already going on.
Yes, I do, John. It's interesting. I think they've, the core of them is quite similar on time and financial freedom. But I think I was actually asked maybe about a year ago. Someone said, "What would you do, if you sold your business?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, travel more, draw more, do more art." And then they said, "Oh, but there's only so much of that you can do." And it really did get me thinking about, my goodness, like what do I actually want to do after, if ever I can depart myself from Design Studio Perth? What would I do with my time? Because it's one thing, and again, like I said earlier, working towards that goal, actually getting there. And then what does that look like, for myself? So I will be honest, I'm still figuring that out. I'm 4 years in. But I love that you share that, because I think so many people don't think about the after my business. It's always just, I'm in my business, what needs to be done now, sort of thing.
Yes, that's right. All the planning and strategies that you put together for your business, you should be doing the same for your personal life as well.
Yes.
Have a vision of what your personal life will look like when it's perfect. I tell business owners with their business, when I talk about vision, some people roll their eyes and go, "Oh, not all that
Ah,
stuff."
yes.
Well, all right. Let me put it this way: what will your business look like when it's finished or when it's perfect? So when it's running absolutely perfectly, what will it look like, and what will you be doing? And some people struggle with that, but
Yeah.
given enough time and getting them to stop and think about it, it's like, oh, well, yeah, it'll be this size and it'll be doing this, and I'll have this time and I can do other things. So, yeah, do you understand what I mean? It's
I do.
like,
Yes.
and so why not do the same thing for your personal life? What will my personal life look like when it's perfect?
Yes.
What what will I be doing? How will I be spending my time? How many times a month will I be playing golf or traveling
Yes.
or whatever? So have a bucket list
Mm.
and keep working on that bucket list.
Yeah,
No,
I think,
no, Matt.
yeah.
Stephen Covey, one of my favorite quotes. Sorry to interrupt, but
No, not at all.
Stephen
Not at all.
Stephen Covey, one of my favorite authors as well. He said, "No man on his deathbed ever wished he'd spent more time at the office."
I did see that quote. Yeah. It
I,
actually struck a chord when I saw that.
I think that's brilliant. Now
Yes.
you'd have to
Yeah.
say no person. You can't say man because it's being sexist, but
Of course. No human.
no human. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
And
it's true, and
it is.
so we're going to have a life.
Yes, and life goes incredibly fast, even faster. I've learned when one does have a business. I find the days just kind of all merge into each other.
Yes, it's only 5 minutes since last Christmas, and here we are
Yeah,
rushing into the next one. So,
so true. And
yeah.
John, so when did you start helping people sell their businesses? Was that a few years ago, or?
Yes, I had a training and development business, a leadership management training business for
Hmm.
10 years. And it's interesting because when I got out of the corporate world, so I became having been an apprentice, I then went into being an engineer in customer service, and then I went into
Hmm.
sales because I found out how much salespeople earned. Um,
Yes.
and then, of course, as a salesperson, you think, well, I can do a better job than the managers. So you
Yes.
become a manager, and then you think, well, why am I managing a business for somebody else when I could manage one for myself? So, so then you start your own business, and that was the path that I went through. And so I had that business, and when I started the business, the goal was to build it and sell it.
Hmm.
And a few things happened. You talked about becoming emotionally attached to your business. I think we should all try and avoid that. I
Hmm.
became emotionally attached to that business. I really loved the programs we were running, the whole facilitation process. Had some fantastic clients. It was great,
Hmm.
but it wasn't making me a lot of money, and the model was not. It was more like a practice than a business. It was around me, and I had to do everything. So I had to do the selling, then I had to get people in the workshop, then I had to facilitate the workshops, then I had to do the coaching with the
Hectic.
participants on the side, the whole
Hmm.
thing. So it becomes very cyclical
Yeah,
because
and full on.
when you're busy doing one thing, you're not doing the selling, and then the sales
Mm-mm.
drop off and so on. Anyway, um, after about 7 years, and the business became part of a franchise, so I was a franchisee, and it was a good franchise. And a guy came in from England and bought one of the other franchisees in WA, bought them out, and he came and saw me, and it was a business that I worked collaboratively with anyway.
Mm.
But he came and saw me and said, "Look, we've got two franchises. They're similar size." He said, "My goal is to get my permanent residency and then to sell the business and go on and do something else. He said, and I think that'll take about 3 years, but I need employees, need some scale.
Mm.
He said, I think you and I should put our businesses together and together we can build something, build a business and sell it. And I said, yeah, well, okay, I've been in it 7 years now and it's about time. And so I was ready to move on. And it's interesting because talk about partnerships, if you like. A lot of
Yes, I'd
people,
love you to, please. Yes,
a
please.
lot of people tell me partnerships don't work.
Yes, I've
Yes,
heard the
they
same.
do. Yeah, well, I say they're like aeroplanes. The ones you hear about are the ones that crash.
Yeah.
Not all
Yes.
the ones that are flying around.
Yeah.
Anyway, we put the two businesses together with the franchisors agreement, and we had a common goal. And this is the thing about a successful partnership. We sounded each other out very much before we put the businesses together to make sure our values and were aligned, that we had similar values, and that we had a common goal for the business. And our common goal was to exit with equity in 3 years. That was the starting point. So we got together and we started going down that track. Come 2.5 years down, we decided the business was now much bigger and it was saleable. And so we talked to the franchisor about selling it. He helped us put a value on it. This is answering your question, Tracy. It's a long way around, but I am getting
No,
there.
that's fine. Please. No rush at all.
The franchisor helped us put a price on the business, and he started advertising for new franchisees, which he was going to do anyway. And he said, look, I'll tell people they can buy an existing business with a great client base and great turnover and stuff, or they can have a new one. So he sent several people to us who were interested in buying our franchise. And my business partner and I spent 6 months on a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster.
I can imagine.
Of thinking we'd got a buyer. No, they pulled out. No, they buy it. No, pulled out. And it was like that for about 6 months. And the last people who looked at it, they were getting into a partnership. We spent so much time and effort with them and gave up all our secrets and stuff. And then they went away and bought a Virgin franchise.
Right.
Which quite rightly to do. But at that point, my business partner and I was sort of giving up on the sale idea, thinking this will never sell. And then a good mate of mine who bought and built and sold a lot of businesses said, go and see this broker in town. He's the best broker in Perth, if not in Australia.
Yeah.
He'll be honest with you. If he takes it on, he'll sell it. So we went and saw this particular broker. We went and saw one of the competition as well, just to compare. The competition didn't treat us very well at all.
I see.
We went and saw the one we were referred to, and he looked at our business, treated us with respect, treated the business with respect, and said, yeah, he said, I could sell that business. That's a really good business. And he put a price on it, which was like 33% more than we tried to sell it for. He said, it's worth that much. So we said, you got the job.
Yeah, hired.
You're hired. And he said, but you've got to go through our process. It's a strict process. We don't deviate from the process. That process will sell the business. Yeah, sure, no problems at all. So my business partner, who is a totally different personality to me, I'm more the creative entrepreneurial type, left me to do all the detail to get things ready for the sale. And long story short, the broker put it on the market. We got the full price for it.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And I learned so much in that whole process. We didn't know how to value our business. We didn't know what made it valuable or what it was worth. We didn't understand the sale process and what was involved and how to go about it. And we'd been doing it all wrong. Fortunately, we'd done it all wrong and failed to sell, because when we did it the right way and we prepared and went through the process, we got 33% more.
Yes, which is fantastic.
That's when I decided, right, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do coaching, and I'm going to coach
Mm.
business owners on all the stuff that I've just learned so that they don't fall into the same trap that we did of
Yes.
trying to sell at the wrong price, trying to sell it themselves, and so on. And and after doing that for a year or two, the broker who had sold our business approached me and said, "Well, why don't you become a broker as well? And then you can
Right.
sell the businesses." So that's when I became a broker, and I did broking and the coaching for 12 years. Now I
And
just
John,
do the coaching.
how does one actually put a value on a business? What are some of the key things that you look at?
Mm, very good question. It
Mhm.
all starts with the financials, you
Right.
know. And
I,
again,
I'm laughing, sorry, because my advisor said the same to me when we started working together. I was like, why do you need to see that? So that's why I'm laughing. Yep, you're right.
yeah. So
Ah,
and it's not always a financial purchase or a financial buy, but in small business, I'd say 90% of business sales, the buyer is buying a profit stream. They're buying an income
mm,
stream for them. So it
yes.
comes down to the profitability of the business for the owner. So we look at the financials, and this is what I do now. I'm not a broker anymore, but I go through the
Yes.
same process as if I was.
Mm,
And we work out what's called I'm going to get into acronyms now, the PBITDA, the proprietor's earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation and amortization. In other words, how much cash is the business developing for the owner before the
mm,
owner takes anything discretionary out of it. So it's what's the cash that I'm allowed to do other things with. So it's important that the business is profitable.
yes.
Um, and so that's the starting point. Now, having said that buyers are looking to buy an income and a profit for themselves, there's other types of purchases. There's lifestyle purchases.
Mm,
So people will buy a coffee shop because they think the lifestyle of running a coffee shop is going to be fantastic.
yes.
You know, maybe they've spent years of their life going to coffee shops and they think,
Mm,
yeah, I could do this.
to be fun.
Um, yeah. So it's a sea change type thing. Or they might buy a caravan park or
Hmm.
something. So it's not going to make them millions of dollars, but it's going to give them a different lifestyle, a lifestyle they
Yeah.
want. And then you've got strategic buyers. Someone will buy a business um, to merge it with an existing business.
Mm,
A classic, some big examples of that is Microsoft buying LinkedIn. Why did Microsoft buy LinkedIn? They paid billions
mm.
for it.
Oh, can imagine.
LinkedIn, I don't think LinkedIn was profitable or not very profitable at the time, but what they were buying was the database.
Mm,
They were buying all
smart.
those millions of people that they can now sell their Microsoft products to,
Yeah.
and they set it up into a training thing as well and everything else. There's a business called Dollar Shave Club.
Yes, I've heard about that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story as well. Two guys set up
Mm,
a business selling razor blades through the mail. I'm a
yeah.
subscriber. I'm an early subscriber of
Oh,
theirs
nice.
um, because the razor blades are cheaper than the ones you buy at the supermarket,
Yeah.
and I didn't have to think about it. Every month, four
Perfect.
blades turn up in the mail. Perfect.
Mm,
Don't have to go out and buy or shop or think about it.
yeah.
Um,
Convenient.
Yeah, convenience. And so they did that for, it wasn't that long. You can look it up on Google, there's the
Yeah.
story, but 3 or 4 years, they had a big international database of people buying razor blades. So what happened? Unilever, which is a big UK
Yes. Huge.
cosmetics company and all that, they saw what
Yeah.
these guys had done. Unilever only sold through wholesalers and through retail outlets. They saw these people selling by mail around the world and
Mm.
said, we'll buy that company. And again, Dollar Shave Club wasn't that profitable, but they paid an absolute fortune to get
Oh,
that
can
database.
imagine.
So now you can buy aftershaves, creams, all
Everything.
that Unilever make through Dollar Shave Club on subscription.
Yeah.
And at a smaller scale, bringing it back down to SME
Mm.
type businesses, again, I talk about, there's a book called Rembrandt in the Attic.
Mm.
Sorry, I can't remember the authors, but
That's okay.
and sometimes a business will have hidden value. They'll
Mm.
have the Rembrandt in the attic they don't know about, or they don't
Ah, I see.
realize they've got. So, and the database, like when we sold our training business, all the value is in the database because the products that we sold and delivered belong to the franchisor.
Mm.
So anybody could get access to them by becoming a franchisee.
Yes.
But all our value is in the database because we had all the big transport companies and a lot of local governments and a lot of really good regular clients
Mm.
putting people through programs. So, and we were profitable as well. We made a good profit.
Yes.
But, so the value in a business is not always obvious. That's what I'm saying.
Mm.
And depending upon the buyer, they will see it differently. So again, it might be IP, it might be patents, trademarks, products, recipes and formulas
Yes.
that are, so all these things have a value to a
Mm.
strategic buyer. So lots of different ways to value a business.
And Don, I have to ask, how important do you feel a brand is in terms of selling your business?
Yeah, I mean, having a good recognized brand is just fantastic for a business. Again, it's
Mm.
that goodwill. So a lot of this stuff that I've talked about is covered in the goodwill value of a business. And that's where the branding comes in. If it's a nice, clean, modern, and consistent brand across all aspects of the
Yeah.
business, then that is so valuable because a potential buyer looks at that and thinks, oh, gee, all the hard work's done.
Mm.
So there's value in it because somebody has spent some good money and invested time and effort in creating a brand that works for the business.
And Don, I want to just touch quickly more on a database because I come across so many business owners that I meet. They don't have their contacts saved in like a CRM. They have an Excel spread. What advice would you have for that person? Because I always say, a database it adds value to your business if ever you want to sell it one day. Do you have any recommendations as to what platform they could use, or if they are still kind of using Zero as their database, what would you recommend in that regard?
Yeah, no, it's good that you mentioned Zero. I always ask the question, so where's your database of clients? Oh, it's in MyOb, it's in Zero.
Yes, I
No,
get that
that's
one
an
as well.
account. Yeah. My advice is if you haven't got a client relationship management system, a CRM,
Mm.
then get one, set one up. But be very, very careful because there are lots of them out there. And I've tried quite a few over the years,
Yeah.
and they serve that they tend to be strong in some areas and not so strong in others. So work out what you want and what's going to work for your business first, and then buy something that fits your business. Don't make the mistake of buying a CRM and then trying to fit the business into the CRM
Yeah.
or the ERP or any other big platform.
Mm.
It's so, and again, people get very confused between, and this is what the marketplace I think is deliberately doing, they get
Yeah.
confused between an email marketing app
Mhm.
and a CRM.
Yes.
To me, they're two different things. And of course, what's happened in that space is that they're all now trying to be everything to everybody.
They are.
So MailChimp started out as purely an email marketing app.
Mm.
And then they saw what people were doing with CRMs. And so they started to move into trying to be a CRM. HubSpot, great technology, and they start you off. This is the other thing. They will lull you into using their platform
Yes.
cheaply. And then it's, oh, well, you want to do that. Oh, well, that'll be another $20 a
You
month.
add on, yeah, it gets so
All the add-ons.
expensive.
Yeah.
Mm,
So just be aware of all these things before you make a decision. But think about, like for my business, I've got a CRM that I've used for many years, and nobody's, apart from people who ask me, very few people have ever heard of it. It's
right.
not one of the big mainstream CRMs, but it's very popular in the US in the real estate industry
Mm,
and other industries, but it seems to be really popular in real estate. And it's more of a one-to-one relationship management platform.
okay.
So it does do some of the marketing and the bigger things. I don't use it for that. I
Mm,
use a separate marketing platform. Um, but as a CRM, it reminds me when I need to contact somebody. It reminds me if I haven't contacted somebody for a period of time. So I categorize my contacts, and depending upon the category, I set a reminder like for this category it's 30 days, for this category
mm,
it's 60 days, and it will prompt me. It will come up with an agenda saying you need to contact these people, and then you can do template emails to follow up with those people. It takes
yes.
minutes to send them emails, so it's a little bit more for me for like a practice where I'm dealing with individual business owners. I'm not trying to mass market to
Yeah, it's more
thousands of people.
personalized.
So
Yes.
Salesforce, for example, is a bit more for the corporate type businesses.
Mm,
Um, so my message is work out what your business needs.
yes.
It needs a, a client database of some kind outside of your accounting package.
Please.
Um, so work out what it is first, what you're going to use it for, and then look around and get some advice on which is the best one to go. But it's not always the biggest and best or the most featured one. If you're not going
Mm,
to use all the features, don't pay for them.
no.
You know?
Yeah, especially HubSpot because they catch so many people where, they end up spending like thousands every month on their actual CRM when there could be, like you said, you could keep it separate and kind of probably not even be spending just as much.
Yeah, yeah, and
Mm.
getting just as good or even better value out of it. So
Mm.
yeah,
John, I still have a few more questions. I just want to make sure you're up for time.
I'm okay for time.
Yes. I wanted to ask, so as a business owner, we do get very wrapped up in the business process. And as you mentioned earlier, you went through a 6-month process whereby there was this emotional roller coaster that you were riding on a daily basis. How do you separate that from your personal life? Did you find you're able to do that? Do you have any tools that you could perhaps share with us that sort of helped with that process? Because it can be very all consuming.
Yes, it becomes a very emotional thing, and
Mm,
what happens in your business does tend to impact on your personal life,
yes.
um, and particularly where you're selling your business to move on to something else, whether it be to retire and do something personally, whatever. There are people around you that are going to be impacted by the outcome of this. Um, so, and this is why, in a lot of cases, in most cases, if a business broker will take the business on, I say go to a business broker,
Mm,
because a business broker, as in the case when we sold our training business, will deal with a lot of the emotional stuff and a lot of the because it can become very distracting if you're trying to keep the
definitely.
business running
Mm,
and you're trying to sell it as well. You end up spending time and focus on the selling, and
yes.
you're letting your business slow down, not do so well. There's a danger there that you take
Mm,
your eye off the ball with the business. And the other danger as well is that you think, oh, yeah, these guys are going to buy my business. It's all over.
yeah.
No, it's not all over. It's not all over until the money's in the bank.
Yes. And the
You
fat
know,
lady sings.
yeah, there's a lot can go wrong,
Yeah.
um, even after a contract is signed. It's what I call the red zone. Once the
Mm.
contract is signed, you've probably got a month or 2 months, whatever the period is, for due diligence and
Yes.
handover and all this sort of thing. And there are a lot of things can go wrong in that time. Like if it's subject to finance, the buyer might not get finance.
Mm.
Subject to due diligence. Now, if the buyer's agent who's doing due diligence, usually their accountant, finds something that hasn't been disclosed, now the whole sale gets scuttled,
Yeah.
or can do, uh, things like that. Or a supplier might turn around and not want to supply the new owner.
Mm.
And again, I'm sorry, I'm rabbiting on here, but
No, please do.
the
It's very educational. Not Robertson at all. Please go for it.
so again, 98% of small businesses sales, so businesses making less than 500,000 profit for the owner,
Mm.
small end. The vast majority of those businesses, it's the asset of the business that sell to. So you sell your business to me. I set up
Yeah,
my business entity, my proprietary limited company, and I buy the assets of your business into my proprietary limited company.
I see.
In other
Mm.
words, the assets being the plant and equipment, the stock, and the goodwill. All
Mm.
right. Goodwill's the intangible, the other two are
Yes.
tangibles. I buy them into my legal entity. So
Mm.
now everything that has to transfer, all the branding has to transfer to me, to
Mm.
my new entity. Um, all the logos, any patents and stuff, websites, social media needs to come over to me because that's what I'm buying. But the other thing, and this, a lot of owners don't realize this until either I tell them or it gets down the track. Your employees now cease employment with you, all their entitlements finish, and
Oh,
now they
wow. I
come
didn't
to
realize.
me. Yeah, well, now they're going to be working for a
Yeah,
different company.
of course. Yeah. Wow.
And your employees probably, if they've been with you for a long time and have accrued long service leave or all
Oh,
these
yeah.
other
All that stuff.
entitlements, they don't want to go back to zero.
Mm-mm. So they would essentially
So,
have to go back to zero?
well, yes, but what generally happens is that the seller will pay out those entitlements.
I see.
So, as the seller, you need to know that you're going to be up for some money to pay those entitlements out.
Mm.
Um, or you come to an arrangement with the buyer. Sometimes the buyer might take on 20% of that cost and you do
Right.
80%. Or there's a lot of things that are negotiable when the contract is being drawn up. Value of plant and equipment is always negotiable. How much assistance you're going to give to me after the sale is
Mm.
always negotiable. There's a whole lot of things that get negotiated at that point of sale when the contract is signed. And yes, the employees is one of them. Because again, the buyer, if they're buying a going concern, so the buyer's concerns, if you like, or
Mm.
risks are they want to know that key people, your key employees, are going to stay with the business. They want to know that your key suppliers are going to stay with the business. They want to know that your key clients are going to stay with the business. And there are no guarantees on any of those things.
No, a lot of gray areas.
Yeah. So once I start running your business,
Mm.
some of your clients might not like me. They might not like doing business with me. Your suppliers, and this I've seen this happen, where once the suppliers found out that the business was changing ownership,
Mm.
they negotiated a different buy price for the new owner.
I
And
see.
so the sale fell apart at that point. Oh,
Oh,
that's right. What happened was your business had two suppliers selling similar products to the business.
okay.
I buy your business. You've got two suppliers, so I've got some security there. If one supplier stops, another one. I'm buying your business, and in the settlement period, the one of the suppliers says, well, hang on a minute, I want an exclusive with the new owner.
Mm.
So if you want me to keep supplying you, you stop using the other supplier.
Mm.
Sale down the drain.
Yeah. Oh,
So
so many different facets.
this is why, as a business owner, you do not stop working in your business
Mm.
until that settlement has happened and the money's in the bank.
It's finalized.
Because you can't afford to take your eye off the ball. And one of the
Mm.
conditions of sale normally is that you, as the current owner, will keep running that business right up until settlement.
Yes.
You don't stop running the business, so there's lots to think about and lots to take into account. So a lot involved in business. So most business owners only ever sell once or twice, probably.
Mm.
They don't understand all these things.
Yeah, there's so many different facets as well. John, besides reaching out to you, we'll pop all the links in the show notes. What is the final advice you'd give someone who is perhaps they're in two minds about selling their business? Should they, shouldn't they? What would be some advice that you'd give that person?
Give me a call.
Yes, we'll pop all the links in the show notes. Any other advice you'd share with them?
Go to my website because there's a lot of information, a lot of blogs on there. It's start
Great.
thinking about my. Sorry to be serious.
No,
Or
please do.
what?
Yeah.
Is start thinking about it early.
Mm.
I sometimes get people come to me, and I'm quite happy to help people that are starting up a business.
Mm.
And I will always ask them, so what's your end game? And they go,
Yes.
but I haven't started yet. Well, no, but what is your end game? Why are you doing this, and what's the end point? And one of the reasons they need to think about that is because the legal entity that they set up in needs to take into account how they want to finish up.
Yes.
And typically, you're starting a business, you go to your accountant and you say, right, register a business for me, set me up. And depending upon the accountant, and I'm generalizing here, and
Yeah.
I've got nothing against accountants, okay? But a lot of accountants working for business owners see their role as minimizing your tax.
Mm. Yeah.
So they tend to look at your structure as what's the best from a tax point of view for
Mm.
you. They don't ask you, well, so what's your end game? How are you going to get
Yeah.
out of this business? And then think about what the best structure is. If people go to my website and go to learn drop-down videos, there's a video on there where I did a webinar with Stephen Brown from
Oh,
Lynn
yes.
Brown,
I heard of
Lynn and
this.
Brown
Yeah.
Lawyers.
Yeah.
And he's talking about legal structures, but then he talks about partnership agreements and
Mm.
shareholder agreements, again, which a lot of business owners don't bother to do, and they
No.
absolutely should.
Yes.
But the first 30 minutes of that video, which you can find on my website, is about, do I operate as a sole proprietor? Am I a proprietary limited company? Do I do a trust? Do I do unit trusts? And what is my structure going to be? So again, when you're starting a business or you're thinking about exiting your business, have a look and see if you're in the right entity. There's a lot of people out there
Mm.
operating from a trust because the accountant said this is your best tax
Yes.
benefit. But then down the track, they might say, well, I want to take a business partner on. I want to transition my business through a partnership or shareholder. Well, you can't do that in a trust. It's
No.
impossible,
Mm.
And then you've got discretionary trusts and unit trusts. And again, totally different animals for totally different purposes.
Yes.
So, there's a lot to think about. What was the question again, Tracy?
No, I just said besides getting in touch with you, because you have a wealth of expertise and knowledge, what else should someone do? But what we'll do, we'll pop everything in the show notes and that video to your webinar that you did with Stephen Brown, and I can testify to that as well, that John is very tech savvy. He has lots of great webinars, and if you're not following him, please click the links in the show notes and connect with him, because there's so many gray areas when it comes to business. And I can speak from my own experience. When I first started, I was clueless. I can design and draw and paint, and that was where my passion lay. And there wasn't, at the time, I didn't really know who to kind of go to for that advice, and I perhaps underestimated the seriousness of having a business as well. So I highly recommend, if you are thinking of starting a business, or if you're in an area where things are a bit too gray, definitely reach out to John as well.
Please, and I'm happy to have a chat, and no obligation, just to give people some options and somewhere to go to get what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, John. So we're starting a bit of a tradition, which I'm not going to say I have stolen from someone else. I was very inspired by a very popular podcast. It's whereby the previous guest leaves a question for the upcoming guest. Again, we won't say where I got this idea from. So we had Ashley Ingham from GT, and I'm just looking at my notes here. So Ash's question, so Ash was aware who the question is for. He has asked, what is the most important thing business owners can do to optimize the value of their business?
There are so many things, but if it's an SME, so if it's under $500,000 profit to the owner, I would say maximize your profit. The profit to the owner before any discretionary takings out of the business, and know your numbers so that you can maximize your profit. So I could give you 10 things, but you asked for one.
Thank you, John. Well, we'll have to get you back on the podcast at another stage as well. But I do have one more question. If there was advice that you could go back and give your 18-year-old self, what would that be?
Oh, yeah, that's a great
Probably 100
question.
different things.
Robert Kiyosaki was big on that one. In one of his programs, he got us all to take along a photograph of us when we were teenage.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And asked that very same question. If you were sitting down with that teenager now, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. Oh, I'm goosebumping.
It's a fantastic exercise, isn't it? And I would
Yes.
say, absolutely go with your heart. Make your decisions with your heart. It's almost like gut feel, but know your heart. So, and this is a big one with business owners. We get into the thinking decisions rather than feeling decisions. And if you want to be happy long term, live to your values and live to what your heart tells you to do.
John, thank you so much. I have really enjoyed our conversation. I needed to hear that last part, because I sometimes find I feel a lot of things, but then my brain talks me out of it. So thank you for the great reminder.
You're welcome. It's been great, Tracy.
Yes,
Really
absolute
enjoyed
privilege.
talking to you.
Always. It's an absolute privilege. You are a legend in Perth, and I'm so grateful for your time. And yes, we'll pop everything in the show notes for our listeners. And I look forward to having you on the show again soon, John.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. Thank you
Take
very
care.
much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.